Revealed. Manager's shocking refusal of a black CEO's black card leads to an amazing 4.5B deal. The club was alive with rhythmic beats and laughter as Marcus stepped through the grand entrance, his heart racing with untapped potential. As a black CEO of InnovateX, he had fought tooth and nail to be recognized, a badge he wore with pride. Tonight was supposed to be his golden opportunity to connect with investors ready to embrace his dream, to bridge the gap between innovation and community upliftment. But then the manager, polished and arrogant, waved his hand dismissively when Marcus presented his black card. "Sorry, but that doesn't work here," he sneered. The laughter of the crowd faded into a suffocating silence. Marcus felt the heat rise in his chest, a fiery mix of humiliation and anger swelling within him. He was used to obstacles, but this was a gut punch. He held the world's stares, and in that moment, their bias was laid bare like an open wound. "What do you mean it doesn't work?" He managed, his voice trembling despite himself. "I've worked too hard to be treated like this." The whispered gasps around him cut deeper than any words ever could. In that moment, shame turned into a wildfire, raging through Marcus's soul. The disappointment in his father's eyes, the sacrifices made by his mother, they all surfaced as if demanding recognition. Yet, it was his community's spirit lingering in the recesses of his heart that turned that fire into a relentless determination. Later, rallying his team, he shared the event that ignited his renewed purpose. Overcoming wasn't just for him. It was for all the faces that looked to him for hope. "This isn't about one refusal," he told them, steel in his voice. "This is about making sure no one else has to feel what I felt tonight." As he plunged into action, planning a networking event meant to shine a light on their work, hope bubbled within the group. Yet, fate had other plans. The partnership they hoped would come to fruition fell apart, and the world went silent. For Marcus, it felt like a punch to the gut. A wound, raw and stinging, was laced with the bitter taste of bias. It felt too familiar, a reminder that the color of his skin often came with chains of prejudice that stifled potential. Feeling the weight of the community on his shoulders, he arranged a confrontation with the club manager he now considered a symbolic wall. Eyes locked, they stood face to face as emotions crackled in the air. "You think you're better than me because of this?" Marcus gestured at the lavish surroundings. "My ideas matter just as much." The manager, initially defensively poised, faltered slightly. "It's not personal," he said, though his voice wobbled. The tension turned electric, and for the first time, they honestly confronted the shadows that loomed over them, the privilege one possessed, the struggle the other faced. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. This uncertain crossing was more than a moment. It was a crack in their societal windows. Hope flickered in the audience of their surroundings, and, as the drama unfolded, it felt as if it could tilt the world one way or another. Months rolled by, and through a combination of unrelenting spirit and community grit, Marcus found himself standing on the pitch of an unforeseen $4.5 billion deal, an opportunity glowing like a lighthouse amidst the fog of despair. But the question lingered. Would he stand for himself and his community against the tide of ignorance? Or would the shadows of old biases halt this chance for change? As the spotlight illuminated him, the city watched, teetering at the edge of hope and doubt. What would Marcus choose? The night of the deal arrived, buzzing with anticipation. The air crackled with electricity as Marcus stood at the podium, looking out over powerful figures seated before him. They were the decision-makers, the investors that could either propel his vision or bury it under the weight of indifference. He smoothed his jacket, heart pounding. He couldn't afford to feel the heaviness of doubt. He had to be the embodiment of resilience. Each face reflected a unique story, but the scattered glances and whispered doubts reminded him of that night at the club, the feeling of being dismissed, marginalized. But this time he had a message. This time, he had an audience ready to listen. "Thank you for gathering here tonight," he began, his voice steady but warm. "What started as a personal journey has transformed into a mission fueled by necessity. InnovateX is not just a tech company. It's a platform for voices long ignored, a gateway for countless minds who can ignite change." He noticed a few raised eyebrows and fidgeting hands in the crowd. Doubt hung thick like fog, but he pushed on. He shared not just facts about their business model and financial projections, but stories. Stories of young Black innovators who had faced hurdles akin to his own, stories of communities longing for better opportunities. He painted pictures with his words, igniting emotions he knew were lying dormant in his audience. There was a moment when he saw a slight nod from a frail-looking older man. That small gesture flickered like hope. It was a signal that perhaps they were beginning to understand. As he delved deeper into the intersection of innovation and social progress, the cheers inside him grew louder. Innovation is more than tech. It's about breaking barriers. We have a chance to reshape narratives that have long sidelined the marginalized in a haze of fervor. His words sped up, tumbling over one another. Before he knew it, he was leaning into the microphone, desperate for them to feel the weight of his message. With each statistic, each heartfelt plea, Marcus could see myriad expressions shifting among the crowd, curiosity shifting to engagement, skepticism melting into understanding. A wave of hope washed over him. As the presentation concluded, Marcus held his breath, scanning the room for reactions. The applause that erupted sent energy surging through him, a balm for old wounds. Yet, echoing in the back of his mind was an unsettling fear. He had risen against the tide, but would it be enough? Then, one of the prominent investors stood. The glint of his silver hair caught the light as he smiled and addressed the room. "I believe we owe this man not just our applause, but our commitment. This is more than a business deal. This is a moment that could redefine our future." The crowd erupted into cheers, and Marcus felt tears prick at the corners of his eyes, a swelling of gratitude, relief, validation. This was what he fought for. Just as the energy reached a crescendo, a younger voice cut through the excitement. "But will we follow through? Or will this just be another empty promise?" The room fell silent. Marcus's chest tightened. The truth of that statement cut through the buzz like a shard of glass. Now he faced an unanticipated challenge. Would they stand together or falter? Would they champion this cause or leave it to linger? His gaze darted across the assembled faces, searching for resolve. As the silence stretched, he knew this moment would define everything. The stakes had been raised. How would Marcus respond? What followed could either seal their fate or unravel their dreams. What would he say to solidify their commitment? The tension in the room crackled, and all eyes were on him, awaiting his next move. A deeper truth loomed. Could he inspire lasting change? Marcus felt the weight of the room pressing down on him. Silence wrapped around his shoulders like a heavy cloak. He took a deep breath, grounding himself, pushing back the shards of doubt and fear. This was the moment. He had to speak from the heart, a place he had tended to so carefully over the years. "We live in a world that often measures success through a narrow lens," he continued, his voice gathering strength. "A lens that frequently excludes the very people who bring innovation to life, the marginalized, the overlooked. Our commitment tonight isn't just about money. It's about justice and inclusion. It's about turning dreams into realities for bright minds stifled by circumstance." He locked eyes with the younger voice, the one who had asked the tough question. Marcus recognized the fire in those eyes, a yearning for authenticity. "I understand your concern. I've stood in rooms just like this one, and I've felt the weight of promises made, but never kept. But I promise you this, InnovateX will not just be a corporate venture. This is a movement, and movements flourish when they have a community behind them. We need your support, but we equally need your accountability." A ripple of murmurs followed his words. He could sense the crowd shifting again, leaning in, wanting to believe. He could feel it, the collective hope rising like steam in a kettle ready to whistle. We have a plan. We break the cycle of neglect through action. We will create mentorship programs, support budding entrepreneurs in underserved sectors, and fuel innovation that comes from a diversity of experiences. He took a brave step forward, his energy surging. Each heartbeat echoed the promise he was making, not just for himself, but for everyone whose dreams hung delicately in the balance. But I cannot do this alone. I can't do this without your voices, your resources, your commitment to see this through. More nods followed. Marcus noticed the frail man again, this time sitting up straighter, his eyes sparkling with an ember of belief. If he could ignite even a handful of those around him, it would be enough. Change doesn't come easy. It demands effort, accountability, and often sacrifice. But think for a moment about what it brings. It brings hope. It creates opportunity. It amplifies voices that have, for too long, been held back. The dimmed lights of the venue turned from stark cold to warm, almost suffusing the air with the possibility of breakthrough. Marcus knew he had to push just a little more, bring it home. Tonight, we're being offered a rare opportunity. We can redefine success together. Will you stand with me? The silence from before shifted into a low hum. His heart raced as he sensed the awakening in the crowd. Eyes flickered with intrigue, and he could see a few people leaning toward each other, whispering. An unseen wall was crumbling. Then the frail man rose to his feet, drawing attention. "I'm in," he said, his voice steady despite his age. "But know these words are just words if not matched with action. We need to hold ourselves accountable." A chorus of affirmative murmurs surged through the room. One by one, others began to stand, extending support unbidden. The energy intensified, filling the space with a newfound vigor. The doubt that had lingered was being replaced by determination. Marcus felt the tears welling again this time. It was pure joy. They were ready to fight for change. But as the applause thundered in response, that single voice lingered in his head, the caution against complacency. Would they follow through? He headed off the stage, heart pounding, ready to meet with the key players. They had opened the floodgates of potential, but the next step loomed large. Would their fire last beyond this initial spark? What commitments would flow from those who had decided to stand with him? The journey had just begun, but he knew there were still hurdles ahead. And somewhere at the back of his mind, a single thought loomed. How would he ensure they wouldn't backslide into the silence he despised? The fight for accountability was just beginning. The air buzzed with excitement as Marcus stepped off the stage, still feeling the warmth of the crowd's energy. Conversations surged around him, a symphony of hope and enthusiasm. But beneath the surface chatter flickered a note of anxiety, a throb of uncertainty gnawing at the edges of his heart. The applause still rang in his ears, but the words of that frail man lingered in his mind like a compass spinning without direction. He made his way through the crowd, greeting familiar faces, shaking hands with potential partners. The excitement on their faces stirred something within him, a flicker of optimism. Each person he passed seemed to carry a little piece of the collective dream they had painted together. He could feel the momentum building around InnovateX, but the weight of responsibility sat heavy. Flashes of doubt showed through. Had he been too naive? Did they truly understand the depth of commitment required? Would they really prioritize accountability over empty promises? The intensity of a night pulsed through him, but it felt fragile, like a paper lantern flickering in the wind. As he approached a small group near the bar, he caught snippets of conversation about the event. "He really inspired me," said a young woman leaning against the counter, her voice bubbling with passion. If we could just target the right sectors, Marcus felt a surge of encouragement. They needed only the right tools to shape their vision into reality. He stepped closer, eager to join the dialogue. "Excuse me," Marcus interrupted gently, earning their attention. "What do you think the first step should be?" The woman's eyes lit up. "We have to create focus groups. Get feedback from people who've been overlooked. They know what they need more than anyone else. Absolutely, he agreed, heart racing at the possibility of action. In mentorship, how can we ensure these voices find resources and support? Ideas spilled forth, igniting animated discussions about outreach strategies, collaborations, and workshops. Laughter rippled through the group, an elixir of hope mingling with their ideas. Yet every now and then his thoughts danced back to that question of accountability. Were they really ready for the long fight ahead? With every conversation, the same single nagging thought crept in. Were they really invested or just caught up in the initial thrill? He needed to weave accountability into their every action, to forge a chain of commitment that couldn't be easily broken. Suddenly, a sharp voice cut through the din. "Hey, Marcus, come here." It was Jenna, one of the board members, waving him over. The urgency in her voice sent a ripple of anxiety through him. "You need to see this." Following her to a quieter corner, he found her serious expression unsettling. She flicked her phone around, showing him a news alert. "Look at this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus's brow furrowed. The headline read, "Manager's shocking refusal of a black CEO's black card leads to an amazing 4.5B deal." His heart sank into the pit of his stomach. This wasn't just a news piece. It was a stark reminder of the systemic barriers they were up against. "What does this mean for us?" he murmured, feeling the weight of the implications. Would this backlash derail their efforts, their dreams for InnovateX? Jenna shook her head, as if she could sense his worry. "It means we have to stand strong. No matter what noise is out there, we need to remain focused. Be the change we want to see." Her words resonated, echoing in the turmoil of his thoughts. Change would require resilience, and he felt the spark of urgency. They had a mission that was more than just a business. It was a fight against a tide that sought to stifle their vision. As they turned back to rejoin the group, he felt the arc of determination bending deeper within him. There was no turning back now. How would they harness this momentum in the face of opposition? What strategies would arise from this added weight of scrutiny? Marcus's fingers tightened around his glass as he and Jenna rejoined the animated group. The laughter and passionate discussions felt distant now, a contrast to the weight pressing on his heart. He scanned the crowd, searching faces for signs of worry. Did they feel it too? He couldn't shake the feeling that everything was teetering on the brink. As new ideas flowed, his mind occupied itself with the implications of the news. What would the scrutiny mean for them? Would the momentum they felt just moments ago be sucked away, replaced by doubt and hesitance? Could they still inspire people if the very notion of leadership felt threatened? "Marcus, do you hear what I'm saying?" A voice broke through his thoughts. The young woman from earlier leaned close, her brow furrowed. "We need to make our vision clear, but it needs to resonate. People aren't just looking for ideas. They want to feel that we share their experience." "Right," he replied, nodding, although his gaze drifted to the screen displaying the headline one more time. Jenna's hand rested on his shoulder. "Don't let it get to you. Remember why we started." He looked at her, finally meeting her eyes. The comfort in her presence steadied him. "We're not just fighting against something. We're building something," he said, more to himself than anyone. The group's energy surged again as another person sparked a discussion about partnerships. They tossed ideas back and forth, a collective vision taking form like clay in skilled hands. Each suggestion breathed life into what InnovateX could become. Yet he still felt that flicker of worry lurking just beneath the surface that, if reading his mind, Jenna chimed in, "Let us not forget about transparency. We need to be clear about our intentions and how we plan to implement them." "Right," Marcus said, finding his voice rising with conviction. "Let us set an example. Transparency leads to trust. Trust fuels commitment." He felt alive as he spoke, the words driving through the surface of doubt. The group seemed to latch onto his enthusiasm, the weight of uncertainty lightening just a little. But as the conversation deepened, uncertainty returned, casting shadows. Would they be able to maintain that trust when the stakes grew higher? When faced with obstacles that could fill newspapers and spread whispers, Jenna leaned closer, a knowing smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Just remember, every great change starts small. It doesn't have to be perfect to be powerful. Those words hung in the air, comforting yet daunting. Marcus could envision tiny sparks of change igniting across communities. Hope blossoming in spaces overlooked and uninvited. But with each spark, there would be resistance. Would they be ready when the inevitable pushback came? The loud clang of a glass chiming against another pulled him back. The crowd around him began to cheer, raising their drinks as they acknowledged the start of something powerful. Here's to Innovate X, someone shouted. To change, shouted Jenna, her voice infectious, merging seamlessly with the joyful shouts of the crowd. The noise surged around him, but inside, he was quiet, the echo of his thoughts still grappling with the challenges ahead. As the laughter and celebration enveloped him, Marcus took a breath, grounding himself in the reality of the moment. Change was brewing, with waves crashing against the shore. How would they ride that wave? How much more was he willing to sacrifice to make sure their message of hope didn't drown in the chaos? Suddenly, his phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, feeling a sense of foreboding as he glanced at the screen. A new message from an anonymous source. You should know, the storm is coming. Be ready. His heart pounded. Just what did that mean for InnovateX? With a glance around him, the joyous noise of the celebration faded. He realized the fight was just beginning. Would they rise stronger or falter under pressure? What awaited them in this storm? Marcus felt the weight of the world settle even heavier on his shoulders. The laughter around him faded to a distant hum, overshadowed by the urgency of the message in his hand. The words of the anonymous warning gnawed at him, wrapping around his heart like cold fingers. He knew the stakes had just shifted. Marcus? Jenna's voice cut through his fog. She leaned closer, her brow pinched with concern. What's wrong? He hesitated, then turned the phone towards her. Look at this. As Jenna read the message, her expression morphed from confusion to alarm. This sounds serious. We need to talk to the team. Right, he breathed, adrenaline coursing through him. But how can we interrupt their momentum now? They're riding the high of the moment. Jenna offered a reassuring smile, despite the tension in her eyes. We have to be honest. They deserve to know there's a storm coming. Otherwise, we could lose it all. Her words rang true, grounding Marcus in reality. He caught the eye of a nearby team member, a bright-eyed young woman named Leah, and motioned her over. Leah, can you gather everyone? We need to meet right away. Within moments, whispers buzzed through the crowd as people were gathered. Marcus felt his heart race, the joyous energy of the earlier celebration morphing into a heavy anticipation. The group settled down, eyes wide and expectant. He glanced at Jenna, who nodded encouragingly. Thank you all for being here, he began, fighting to keep his voice steady. I know the mood is high, and we've just celebrated a powerful beginning for InnovateX. But we have something important to discuss. Puzzled expressions settled over the crowd, and Marcus felt the weight of their eyes. I just received a message that suggested we're entering a precarious situation. The murmurs intensified, but he pressed on. We need to brace ourselves. I can't share all the details yet, but there's talk of scrutiny of backlash. I need us to be prepared. The message said a storm is coming, Jenna added, stepping beside him. We must anticipate pushback and be ready to counter it. Marcus scanned the faces before him. They were a mixture of seasoned veterans and passionate newcomers, all eager to rally around a cause that felt bigger than any one person. But now doubt was creeping in. Would they remain steadfast amidst adversity? Are we being targeted? Leah asked, her voice quavering slightly. It's possible, Marcus replied, but let us focus on what we can do. We need to strengthen our network, reach out to our supporters, and ensure our messaging is clear and united. Transparency is key, Jenna added. If we want to maintain their trust, we need to be open about our challenges. Marcus's heart quickened as he felt a tiny flicker of hope. Here, in this moment, he witnessed what InnovateX stood for: a community ready to face adversity together. But how collective would they remain when they faced the R&T scene obstacles? Suddenly, one of the senior team members, a grizzled veteran named Derek, stood up. I've been in the trenches long enough to know when we're up against a wall. But it's in these times we must show our strength. If we hold together, if we fight back, we can emerge even stronger. A hush fell over the group. There was something in Derek's tone, an undeniable conviction that sent ripple of resolve through Marcus. The fear that had gripped him moments before began to dissipate, replaced by a shared determination. Maybe this was the true test of InnovateX's spirit. Let us keep the lines open, Marcus urged. We'll share updates as we get them. And I want each of you to come forward with ideas on how we can strengthen our mission and community. The energy shifted, pulses of hope dancing through the crowd. The murmurs of support began to rise in waves, filled with ideas and solutions. Marcus's heart swelled. They could do this. They would do this together. But as optimism began to take root, Marcus couldn't fully shake the sense of unease. This was just the beginning. The storm was building, and they still didn't know its true impact. Then his phone buzzed again. This time a ping indicating a new alert. As he looked at the screen, his breath caught in his throat. The headline was stark: InnovateX under fire. What's next? His heart raced. What would it reveal? And was this just a first wave, or was something more sinister brewing on the horizon? The room felt heavy as eyes drifted to Marcus. The vivid headline on his phone was like a flash of lightning in an already dark sky. Distracted whispers surged through the group, pulling everyone deeper into the maelstrom of uncertainty and fear. What does it mean? Leah asked, her voice barely above a whisper, betraying the tension in her shoulders. Jenna moved closer, glancing at Marcus. We need to know who's behind this. We can't let rumors dictate our narrative. Marcus nodded, though his heart pounded in his chest. That's right. We have to understand this situation fully before jumping to conclusions. He swiped through the news article on his phone. The allegations were serious, a refusal of investment from a prominent black CEO themed around the empowerment of minority communities. It painted InnovateX in an unfavorable light, suggesting bias within their leadership, and implications could linger like heavy fog. That a chill went through Marcus as he considered the ramifications. If this ISNT cleared up quickly, it could damage everything we've worked for. Derek stepped forward again, his expression stern yet compassionate. It's crucial we rally our support now. We stand for inclusion and equality, and we need to be vocal about it. If this goes unaddressed, it could shift public opinion against us. Agreed, said Jenna. We need a public response. We can't let someone else control our story. We must put our values front and center. The fire of determination sparked among the members of the team. Ideas exploded into the air like fireworks. Social media campaigns, community outreach, partnerships with organizations dedicated to diversity. Each thought built on the next, weaving a tapestry of what could be done. Marcus allowed a moment of connection in the ideas being thrown back and forth. Somewhere deep inside, he felt the storm inside him calm slightly. There was strength in unity, and this was the moment they could prove it. Let us draft a statement, Marcus said, his voice gathering momentum. One that clearly asserts our values, our commitment to diversity, and our unwavering support for those we aim to uplift, especially in times like this. Let us showcase what InnovateX truly represents. As they broke into smaller groups to brainstorm, Marcus' mind spun with 100 thoughts at once. Was it enough? Will they believe them? The shadows of doubt loomed large. Whispering questions he fought to silence. The feeling in the room was palpable electric. It was that pivotal junction between fear and courage. As they rallied together, predictions of the storm ahead clashed against their united front. Think of the leaders and children out there who rely on us as a beacon of hope. Derek urged. We have to remind them that we are part of a bigger story, one that cannot be stopped. A fire ignited in the team. Energy surged. Hope surged. Marcus exhaled, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. They were building something extraordinary together. Then, just as the team solidified their plans, Marcus's phone buzzed again. His stomach twisted when he saw another notification, this one from the same news outlet. Breaking. InnovateX responds to controversy. Is this the end or a new beginning? His heart raced as he opened the alert. This time, the headline felt like a ticking time bomb. What had they said? Would it breathe life back into their mission? Or would it seal their fate? Could tomorrow's news push them into the light or plunge them deeper into darkness? The world felt like it had tilted sideways as Marcus read the words flashing across his screen. A mix of anger and disbelief washed over him, and he glanced at his team, their eyes wide with apprehension. This isn't what we wanted, he murmured, already feeling the pressure rise to his temples. The urgency in the air morphed into something heavy, something that felt like a chain around his neck. Jenna's eyes glinted with determination. However, what did they say? We need to know exactly what they're claiming. They're saying it was a deliberate refusal, Marcus replied, his voice thick. He quickly summarized the article. How would the world see this? InnovateX, a company built on dreams of equality, dragged through the muck while others watched. This is a setup, Leah said, her face pale but lips set in stubborn resolve. We can't let them spin this into a narrative against us. We need to turn this around. It's going to take more than a statement, Derek chimed in, his brow furrowed. We need to showcase our track record, not just what we say. We have to remind people who we are. The room buzzed with ideas, once more better ideas, fueled now by fear and urgency. They debated launching a rapid social media offensive, highlighting their dedication to uplifting minorities, showing real people, real stories that would humanize their mission. As he listened, Marcus felt his heart race. There was no time for hesitation, no room for doubt. Action. They had to seize the narrative before it seized them. What about interviews with our community partners? Jenna asked. Let us show them how we worked with people who matter. Let us put faces to the numbers. Marcus nodded, slowly igniting with hope. Yes, let us make sure we tap into our women's and minority networks. We can gather testimonials, videos, anything we can use to project our truth. They segmented into teams again, all hands on deck, orchestrating a chorus of voices and visions aimed at reclaiming their story. The energy was infectious. Even amid the storm, hope flickered like a candle-less flame. As he dove into discussions about outreach programs, Marcus received another notification. This one halted him in his tracks. Someone had leaked more information about the CEO at the center of the controversy. The article speculated about covert deals and connections, insinuating that InnovateX was involved in something far more sinister. It was a stark reminder of how quickly things could spiral. Guys, Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. This isn't just about us anymore. If we don't act fast, this could destroy everything. An unsettling silence spread through the room, punctured only by a nervous cough from Derek. Tension vibrated in the air like a taut string ready to snap. How could they fight against something so wildly out of control? Would the truth matter when narratives were being twisted so artfully? This is our fight, Leah declared bravely. We have to show them we're about doing good, not just paying lip service. Before they could regroup, Marcus took a moment to breathe deeply. What kind of future could they build if they could push through this? It wouldn't be easy, but it had to be done. He glanced at his team, feeling the flicker of solidarity among them burn brighter. Then, just as everyone was gearing up to dive back into their tasks, Marcus's gaze fell upon his phone once more. A final alert. CEO denies claims of bias. Will this shift the balance? His pulse quickened as a chilling realization struck him. The battle was far from over, and there was more at stake than he could fathom. What had the CEO decided to reveal that could irrevocably change their fight for integrity? The weight of the latest headline sat heavy in the room, a cold shockwave vibrating through the air. Marcus felt his stomach twist as he read the damning words over and over. $4.5 billion deal, and it was all in our hands. Just gone. The reality of the situation hit like a punch, stealing his breath. What had just been a battle for reputational survival was now an all-out war for their very existence. Jenna paced restlessly, her hands fumbling as she combated anxiety. We need to respond. We can't just let this sit. What if people start believing it? What if they think we really rejected the CEO because of bias? Derek's face was a mask of conflict. How do we even salvage this? The CEO's silence is deafening, and it's giving too much power to the other side. We need a united front. Leah bit her lip, her intense gaze frozen on Marcus. We're a family, right? If we keep our heads down, we'll drown. We need to pull together and push back with the truth. People need to see who we really are. The fire in her voice sparked something in Marcus. It ignited an ember of hope amidst despair. Leah's right. We can still make this ours. We have the numbers. We have the testimonies. We will show them what we are capable of. Everyone exchanged nodding heads as they began forming a plan. They could take the narrative back. The team divided their responsibilities. Some would dig deeper into their partnerships. Others would collect videos from community members willing to share their experiences. Let us highlight our past successes, Leah suggested. Showcase the initiatives that have positively impacted lives. We can't let this story become our legacy. As the team fractured into smaller groups, buzzing with frantic energy, Marcus felt the clock ticking louder in his mind. He grabbed his phone again, trying to connect with the CEO, but to his dismay, all he got was silence. Nobody was answering. Panic began to creep back in. What if they were abandoned? What if their leader couldn't see the damage they were facing? His heart was racing, and for a moment, he felt utterly lost. Then a glimmer of hope appeared as he remembered the board meeting scheduled for the following week. If there was any chance the CEO would show up, that would be it. If he couldn't communicate the urgency, they would have to be louder, undeniable. Marcus gathered the team again. Everyone, I need your full energy at the board meeting. We're going to demonstrate what InnovateX stands for. We will fight for our truth. Jenna flashed a small, determined smile. We will give them a story they won't forget. The next few days became their battleground, filled with fervent preparation. They interviewed community leaders, edited videos, balanced schedules, and crafted messages that were shared rapidly across social media. To Marcus, it began to feel like they were building a fortress of truth, bracing against the rising tide of misinformation. Yet, amid all the chaos, doubt lingered in Marcus's mind. Would the CEO show his face, ready to defend them? Or had he slipped away into the shadows as rumors turned darker? Moments before the board meeting began, Marcus gathered the team, his heart full of hope and fear. No matter what happens in there, remember this, he said, a fierce spark igniting his gaze. We are InnovateX. Our mission is greater than any one person's story. As he stepped into the room, the air thick with expectancy, Marcus felt the gravity of the situation loom larger than life. Could they turn this tide in their favor? How many lives depended on it? Then he looked to the front, and there stood the CEO, ready to address the group. But would he have the truth on his side? As Marcus stood at the forefront of that now familiar boardroom, his heart raced like a drum. The stakes had never been higher, the eyes of everyone bearing down on him. There was a palpable tension in the room, thick with uncertainty. The CEO's presence brought a flicker of hope, but Marcus could sense the looming shadows of doubt still swirling around them. The CEO cleared his throat and began words tumbling out, attempting to affirm the company's commitment to diversity and inclusion. Yet, each sentence rang flat against the gravity of the situation. Marcus observed the board members, their expressions a mixed bag of skepticism and curiosity. Would they rally around a leader who was once at the helm of a controversy that threatened to erase everything they had built? Marcus took a deep breath, his fingers resting lightly on the edge of the table. It was time to be the voice that pushed against the tide. If we're going to make it through this, he said, stepping forward, his voice firm and clear, we cannot just assert our values. We need to show them. We've documented our past successes, our partnerships with communities that long felt sidelined, and how we've uplifted voices just like ours. As he spoke, he caught the glimmer of recognition in the eyes of team members who had stood by him. They were all invested in this present, not just for themselves, but for the community they sought to uplift. Encouraged, he pressed on. Let us remember we're more than numbers in a report. We are a movement. His words hung in the air, and for a moment, silence enveloped him. Then, Derek moved next to him, extending the narrative into the realm of personal experience. We represent more than just InnovateX. We represent parents, children, families who count on their voices being heard. It was a reality check, a reminder that this battle was bigger than anyone around that table. Around the room, heads began to nod. The energy shifted, igniting a flicker of conviction. Marcus's heart soared. They were igniting something within the room, piercing through doubt, breaking through barriers. Leah, her passion undeniable, jumped in. I've gathered testimonials, real stories from our community. This isn't a corporate journey. It's a shared mission. We can do this together, and we need to prove it. She held up her device, showing clips of smiling faces speaking about InnovateX's impact in their lives. Each word became a building block, repairing the breach that had threatened to swallow them whole. Then, Jenna piped in, we can pull together our advocacy initiatives, spotlight diverse innovators who have thrived under our programs. We can present a united front that illustrates real change. With each voice rising above the noise, doubt washed away like waves receding from the shore. The CEO listened, processing the sincerity emanating from the team. His usual air of authority began to melt, revealing a flicker of vulnerability. The truth is, the CEO finally said, his voice cracking ever so slightly, I failed to act sooner. But I stand before you now, ready to listen, ready to commit to change. The power of that admission resonated deeply, echoing against the walls of the boardroom. As the meeting proceeded, thoughts turned into action, plans were laid, and the tide of their narrative began to shift. They harnessed that surge of momentum, moving swiftly to craft a unified message highlighting their past successes and their future vision firmly rooted in community upliftment. Outside the boardroom, the chatter grew louder, and news teams began to take notice. The narrative about InnovateX transformed from one of shame to one of hope. People outside the walls began to rally around them, ready to fight alongside this wave of momentum. Marcus watched in awe as his peers wove their energies into something stronger than he had dared to imagine. Days turned into weeks. An initial storm they faced became a catalyst for meaningful change. A global conversation around equity surged, with InnovateX at the forefront. Marcus's heart swelled with pride as he listened to inspiring stories of those who found their footing because they were given a voice. The warmth of supported souls ignited hope even further, illuminating the path toward progress. Eventually, there came a day when they gathered at the same club where it all began. Tonight, there was no sneering manager nor dismissive gestures. This time, they were welcomed with open arms. Investors stood ready, not just to invest in a company, but to nurture a vision born from resilience and community. Marcus took a moment, looking around at the camaraderie, flourishing in the room, the power of unity spelled out before him. He raised his glass, filled with emotion. To InnovateX, to our shared journey, our voices, and our unwavering commitment to change. Cheers erupted, echoing like a promise, promising that they wouldn't falter again. Each beautiful face reflected the journey they had taken, the obstacles they had overcome together. And in that moment, as laughter and hope filled the air, Marcus knew they had forged something greater than any deal. Their legacy was written in the lives they had touched, the barriers they had broken, and the community they had empowered. They stood on the brink of extraordinary change together. As the music pulsed and the evening celebrated the magic of newfound beginnings, Marcus felt more alive and connected than he had ever dreamed. This was just the start. The real journey toward lasting transformation had only begun. Now, as we reflect on this incredible tale of resilience, determination, and unity, I have a responsibility to ask you for your support. You need to subscribe immediately to this channel so you won't miss the next exclusive stories that inspire. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep the energy flowing. I want to know your reactions and feelings about the ending in the comments. And most importantly, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Let us keep this journey alive.